Welcome back to the Without Context podcast. You're once again joined by me, AnxietyLasagna. You have Decavolty, Skyebreaker, and SharkyHat. RiftDuck's not feeling great today, so we wish him all the good things and he feels better soon, and hopefully he'll be back with us next week. So, since I'm the one who gets to talk first this time, I've decided I'm going to make these bunch of gamers talk about something that's not gaming because boy, have I felt out of place anytime we talk deep about gaming. So, our topic this week is our favorite activity outside of gaming. And since I'm in charge and I don't want to go first, I'm going to pick who wants to go first? Are we going to do a nose goes? Who wants to go first?
That's not that's not how this works.
Because fine, then you get to go first, Deca.
I'll go first.
It's like,
Go
damn it,
first.
we have a system here.
And I am in charge this time, so I say,
That's true.
forget your system.
It is
We're not talking about games.
it is the
But go
hailing
ahead, Deca.
mandate this week.
Yep. All right, here you go. I'm gonna pull it out.
For those of you watching on Spotify, Deca is reaching into a bag and pulling out
A camera.
a camera.
My
camera.
DSLR. I don't have a card in here. So this is what I do on my off time as I take pictures. I'm not great at the post-production part of pictures, like editing and all of that Lightroom stuff. However, I am very good at angles, and that's how I'm carried. I was actually able to pay for a hotel room at San Japan with this. That's how I paid for my hotel room, and I had some left over. So
And I'm-
evidently
Awesome.
people like me enough to keep booking me. I've been into photography for a long time, and there is a long, somewhat convoluted story that goes into it. But I got into cosplay photography in particular because a lot of my friends at the time had photographers who were like, yeah, I'll get to it whenever. Meanwhile, I will upload the photos in my crying Google Drive and just send it to them and be like, there you go. Your photos are there. Like the next day after the con. It's not that hard.
That's awesome.
Basically, I just plugged up a hole in the needs for my friends. But it gets deeper than that because my grandfather on my mother's side literally invented color photography.
Wait, shut up. No way.
This was something that I think we touched on off camera in a
We
previous
touched on this
episode.
off. We touched
I
on this
remember
off camera.
talking about it very briefly.
The unfortunate part about my grandfather inventing color photography is that he was a hermit. Never got it patented. So here comes the white man in Kodak to be like, here we go. We're gonna invent this totally original invention of color photography. Never before seen before.
In an off-topic related note of stuff that ancestors did, if I trace the family tree right, I think my family brought tomatoes to the U.S. So, or I
Save it
think
for
like
the
they brought.
3.1.
I was like, because I had a thing where I looked through my family tree a while back, and there were landrace that were the ones that brought tomato seeds to start tomato farming here in the United States, and I was like, I swear to God, if I'm the reason that ketchup exists here, it's like
You're
that's
welcome,
all
America.
That's all this family's known for is we brought you
Ketchup.
the ability to make ketchup.
I
Oh
wanna talk
man,
about my family.
that tickled me. And
Please.
in post you'll see a few examples of my photography. Of some pictures that I've taken. Like
I was
here,
warned.
here, and here.
Yeah, I was
Right.
warned that he would send me a bunch of files to edit in.
I didn't say a
But,
bunch. I said like 3.
But I've seen Deca's photography on Facebook and all that, and I mean it's like nothing flashy, but it's definitely better than anything that I could like ever take. It's definitely like the angles and like just the framing of it. Something I've always appreciated.
My signature move is have knee problems, get on my knees and get the good shot.
That will be a really great out of context soundbite.
You're welcome. That's the show.
If I remember, Deca, you have a Facebook that we could link to, right?
I do. I actually put it I made a flow page for myself that I'm going to be showing you later.
You just want us to add all flow pages to the links now? Just
Yeah,
everybody has an individual flow
I
page.
made my own flow page because I realized the other day, wow, I'm in a lot of shit.
Yeah, I think that actually might be the smartest idea for us.
Yeah, I also have a hard time keeping track of all my medias. It's very confusing.
I have a photography page that I promised that I would keep up with because cosplayers keep wanting their photos. I have this podcast that I do with you chuckleheads every week.
That's Dr. Chucklehead to you, mister.
I don't see no doctorate on your wall.
You
That's
just put me
Master
Master
Chucklehead.
It's right there.
It's
It's
like
invisible.
just,
You can't see it.
here's the dynamic of this party. We have Haley with her degrees, as always. We have me with a pile of clothes that are 2 weeks old out of the laundry that I still haven't folded. We have Deca's room, which I know is probably just a housing situation, but to me it looks like a disaster at times. And then we have
That's
Alvin.
why I don't point it downward.
And then Alvin is just the plushie tucked into his bed behind him.
That's my wife's
I'm
plushie.
always
Thank
in
you.
front of my plushie.
I'm also always in front of my plushie collection.
Who is the more adult one out of this
Who
group?
is the actual
right?
adult? Yeah.
We don't talk about my wife's K-pop boy right here.
Oh,
just,
which one is it?
Just in frame.
This one's a Daniel Kang. He's a good dude. But I can attest to Deca's photography. I think we both were like sort of into photography like at the beginning, like when we were both starting at around the same time. And we were very supportive of each other, and I always love Deca's stuff. It's always fun to look at his pictures. But I was a little sad last year because COVID happened and cons weren't a thing, and it's hard to get pictures of cosplays when there's no con.
It's very challenging because a lot of my signature is also like not necessarily like getting like super close for like a tight shot, but like I have to adjust what lens I use because I have to get a little further back to get the good shot because COVID restrictions. That doesn't stop me necessarily, especially if I know that the person is vaccinated, from just being like this close to you, like give me a sec. But it does give me pause with like hallways, and you'll see them. I'll see a few hallways, but I already had those planned. Where they're just like, I'm like down here looking up at you, pose. Yeah,
I'm really glad to see you still doing it because you're good at it. I enjoy it. So
oh, thank you. It does come with the burden of like seeing my peers who do know how to use Lightroom and Photoshop and be like, oh, that's a pretty good shot there.
I have a friend who knows how to use I have a friend that knows how to use Lightroom, and he does like local photography around here. And I was trying to get him into the D&D group, so hopefully one day there could be a collab here where it's like, hey, I need some help with Lightroom stuff.
Photog collab.
We have the collab group coming out of the D&D campaign.
Oh man. Yeah, that's my entry to this is photography. I enjoy it quite a bit. I would have said dungeon mastering, but I mean, no.
It's gaming.
That still counts as gaming.
Yeah, that.
Do dungeon mastering. You don't enjoy dungeon
mastering. I love dungeon mastering with all my fucking heart. That person's going to consider it gaming.
That's fair. I like how on my screen, the one that's being recorded, everybody's pointing in directions that is not Haley whenever referring to Haley. Like, to me, she's right above me. But Alvin was like pointing like this side.
Deca's like pointing
over.
I'm gonna make you change it. I'm gonna keep doing this to the point where you have to change the overlay.
Just start flipping things.
I still have not learned how to like crop out something in Premiere and move it around.
So, Deca, is your favorite sort of like photography subject cosplay, or do you branch out into any other sort of subject matter?
Done 2 weddings. I've done wedding photography. I've done like, model photography, to get a good, nice, tight headshot. I've done stuff for. I've done NSFW stuff. Like, I just like to think I wear a pretty sizable like hat of different types of photography. It's like the big photography hat, but the little hats inside.
And considering that Texas is a 10-gallon hat.
Yes.
Ugh, Texas.
Yeah, I do enjoy all sorts of styles. I do think the most profitable for me is cosplay photography because everyone wants a shot of their snazzy outfits. So maybe one day when prom photography becomes a thing that I don't feel immediately weird for going to this fucking hormone-driven 17-year-old fest, maybe.
You also can make money at cons doing photography because people there bring a lot of money for the deal for the vendor area. So.
This is gonna be my side tangent for the episode. I sat down in Japan because I was waiting for my client. Sat down and these dudes were just like, "Hey, you mind if I sit here?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. You guys have masks, it's fine." So they sit and they're just kind of like talking about the stuff they got in the dealer's room, and they're like, "Here's this $300 statue of Hatsune Miku I got. I could have got the $700 one, but I chose not to." And that's just so ridiculously common at anime conventions. And I use Hatsune Miku. I don't remember the actual character that they got, but I'm using Hatsune Miku because everyone loves Hatsune Miku.
Yeah. That's facts.
Miku. You can call me Miku. Sorry.
You're gonna get us DMCA'd.
Sorry, the DMCA for singing 5 seconds of Hatsune Miku.
That's like 3 seconds too much.
I'm mostly joking, but I am a little. I make this joke. I make this joke on my Tuesday games as well. Like, don't hum that. You're gonna get us DMCA'd.
Meanwhile, I'm playing like copywritten music on stream constantly. Like, fight me! I'm a small streamer.
But it's like I have that same like mindset. Kristen and I eventually want to go to like San Diego Comic-Con or something when everything ends. Like, meet up in San Diego and all that. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to plan for the plane, the trip, like the gas, like the hotel, the food, and everything, and then a whole separate budget for what I'm going to buy.
If you come to Emerald City Comic-Con, you can stay at my place.
Woo!
I might take you up on that.
And also,
When
we wanted to
COVID's
hit up
over.
I don't think it's in Texas. It's I think there's one in Texas. I think
There's
it's like
bunch of them in Texas.
it's like a horror convention in Texas. I think it's a Fright Fest or something.
Too spoopy.
Six Flags.
It's one. There is a Texas like convention that's a big horror convention that we wanted to go to. So I might be in Texas one day. I don't know where, but
we're gonna record an episode with both of us together.
Just in the same room.
Yep.
Socially distanced.
No, I'm vaccinated. I don't give a shit.
That's fair.
But was that all that you had to share, Deca?
I mean, that's all I had to share. If anyone had any questions.
Anybody got questions?
I appreciate it, and I'm glad you're still doing it because I quit a long time ago.
And people can see it for themselves following the link. So
following the flow code.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Deca. And we'll move on to Skyebreaker.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Outside of gaming,
we're gonna make him mad.
The big one everybody here has already seen. I'm not gonna whip it out because I don't know how YouTube likes this stuff.
Demonetized immediately.
Yeah, right?
When you phrase it
Especially
like
when
that.
you put it that way.
I like to play airsoft. Airsoft is my big thing. I've been doing it since I was 14. I turned 28 this year in 2 weeks. So I've been playing for about 14 years. If you don't know anything about airsoft, it's very similar to paintball, where instead of like paintballs, you shoot little plastic BBs. And it doesn't hurt. I do have some scars from it, but that's because I wasn't wearing like long sleeves and stuff like that. but you can go outdoors, you can go indoors. There's fields and different arenas to play in. It's super popular overseas in Asia, in like Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Japan. The first airsoft gun was made in Japan because Japan has very strict gun laws. Nobody's allowed to own a gun. Um, so airsoft was sort of their way around it. It's a toy gun. It shoots little pellets, and it became a really big sport. And that's sort of been my thing. I've been into it for a while. Back in like 2014, I want to say. Me, one of my friends, and then another one of our mutual friends, we went to Hong Kong together to play airsoft and like get airsoft guns to bring back overseas. And it was a ton of fun. We were there for about a month. Yes, Deca.
I have a two-parter.
Okay.
How dare you flex on me by giving the history of airsoft while I'm over here like, yeah, I like taking photos. But the actual question I have is, how was that customs trip
I was
from
about to
Hong
say,
Kong?
how did you get them overseas?
So, for me, it was pretty smooth. The best way to do it is to disassemble the gun. And then what I did is I wrapped it in like all my clothes and stuff. And then as long as it has the orange tip coming into the US, it's usually recognized as a toy gun. But my friends did not disassemble their guns, and they had a trip with customs. They were like,
Oh,
"What is
God.
this?" But it's different than a real gun because internally there's like mechanical parts. It's like a gearbox. It has like electrical wiring and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's pretty easy enough to be like, this is a toy gun. It's got electrical components to it. But yeah, they were like delayed for like 5 or 6 hours at the airport coming back in. So
I did something similar where you like disassemble and have it like scattered amongst your belongings, but I did that with Kinder eggs from Germany. Where I had all the chocolate
illegal
in my
candy.
carry-on bag and all the toys
Smuggling.
in my luggage, and then I just like melted them back together again.
Oh my
and got
God.
home.
Disassembled
Come-
airsoft gun. Fine. Kinder egg. We're gonna have to hold you here for a bit.
Nope, they didn't even ask. They had like the sniffy dog there, and I was like, hopefully they're not trained to smell Kinder eggs.
If they sniff the chocolate, they're gonna die.
It's a two-part like strategic idea. But yeah, this is like, it's weird because like I really like airsoft, and it's a safe way of like practicing and handling like firearms because they're one-to-one replicas for the most
Yeah.
part. And it's a safe and responsible way to like practice handling firearms and like getting used to how things feel and things like that. And I like shooting. I don't personally own any guns, but I like to go to ranges with my friends and like shoot guns and things like that. So for me, it's kind of therapeutic. And owning airsoft is kind of like a way to keep that like dexterity and stuff like that without having to have a real gun in the house. And things can happen. So it kind of takes that sort of it's more lax approach to like gun control, like safety for myself. But yeah, I mean, I spent way too much money. Yes, Haley.
Oh no, finish your story. I can wait.
Oh, I spend way too much money on it. Like it's kind of like cars where you can like mod a lot of things like internally, externally, things like that. So I'm big about it, and so like for me, it's also like retail therapy because like who doesn't like spending money on stuff and being like, ooh, new stuff. So yeah, I have a gun that I could have taken that money and then like spent it on like photography stuff when I was into photography, but I spent like $1,400 on an airsoft gun instead. So I'm a responsible adult.
Sometimes.
What's up?
So this is probably going to be an annoying question more than anything, but when you said there's like outdoor airsoft courses and they have like the little plastic pellets, are
Mhm.
those like, do they clean those up afterwards and you can like recycle them, or they just like you shoot them and then they just like vanish into the ether?
So there, it's kind of like a controversial topic amongst the airsoft community because there are plastic BBs, and a lot of them have like aluminum powder in them, to weigh them like a certain weight. Like they go anywhere from like 0.12 grams up to like 0.7 grams, stuff like that. So they use aluminum powder in the plastic to like weigh them different amounts. But they do make biodegradable ones, and I personally use biodegradable ones whenever I play outdoors, especially. Indoors, not so much because they sweep them up and then they recycle them. But it's one of those things that's like kind of controversial because people always say like biodegradables aren't as like high quality or whatever. But I try to be a responsible player and like use biodegradables when I'm outside and then when I'm indoors, I'll mix them up sometimes. Just depends on what I'm feeling or what I have extra, because I don't really care that much. Like the difference between them, they're similar enough.
Yeah,
Cool.
that was
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
that was like a question I never even like considered about airsoft once. So it was like, so what happens to the pellets after it's over? And I'm sitting here like, what does happen to the pellets?
what does happen?
Like
environmentally conscious.
This paper right here is my Master of Science in Environmental and Sustainability Studies. As soon as he mentioned plastic pellets, I was like,
do I
bring it up? Do I? And that's what I struggle with the entire time.
I have friends that play like paintball locally and everything, and I'm pretty sure it might be the same way, like because those things are meant to like burst open with paint. So I'm wondering, so those might be like made with some kind of biodegradable material also.
I'm usually assuming they are. It's a big point in both communities that like sustainability and like biodegradable materials are used for the stuff that's like expendable. So
yeah, you don't want to put out a lot of money for something that's just gonna lay around afterwards.
First. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I half expected you to be like in your full setup.
I should have. I was thinking about it, but I got kind of lazy. I showered kind of late today, so
looks like
maybe
that one weird. Looks like that one weird artist that I'm not going to name on here.
Yeah.
But you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're not the first person to mention it.
Yeah.
So
that's just going to stay between us.
Yeah, if you have any other questions.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's like I know we have a airsoft field here in Virginia also. In my area, it's a huge one, and it might be paintball, it might be airsoft. I can't remember what exactly my friend does, but
I'm trying to remember. I know in Virginia there's like a really popular one. He's like on YouTube and stuff like that. It's like I think it's called Ballahack. Ballahack Airsoft. Yep, yeah. That's a super popular one. People will travel across the country.
Yeah,
to go
because it's like it's a lot of acres. It's actually like just a forested area. They've built like housing and like bunkers and everything to like play in. So it's definitely like a go to like this they do like the zombie kind of thing too, where it's like you'll have the people drop in with the airsoft and you'll have a bunch of other people just running at them trying to
they do one event that's really cool. It's very LARPing. It's like it's LARPing, let's be honest. It's straight up like a post-apocalypse, like think Fallout.
Yeah, it's like military,
it's like airsoft,
RPG airsoft.
Yeah, it's a lot of people go to it, and it looks really fun. I want to be able to like go one day, but I don't have enough friends to play.
If you go,
I'll take you with
out of my. If you go and I'm out of my parents' place, you can stay with me.
Sounds great. I'll take you with me.
Cool. But is there any more you wanted to share, Sky?
No, that's it. That's all I got. Airsoft, I love it. It's fun. I've been playing it for way too long, so.
I trust Alvin to get us out of a bad situation if firearms are needed.
Yeah, just bring a firearm because mine aren't real.
I was gonna say until you have a fire, and you use one of his firearms, and it's like pew 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 pew. Oh shit!
You could probably like take someone's eye out with it if you were like a particularly good shot.
Absolutely. I'll have to shoot the really expensive one for you guys one day because it sounds like it sounds crazy. So.
Let's do it on the podcast. I'm expecting like to be done on the podcast and then like hear Sarah from the other room. Like, what are you doing?
Like, what's going on?
So why are you shooting it in the house?
The Republicans showed up finally.
That might be when I sit out, because you're talking to the person who almost cried at Safeway the other day because a balloon popped and it scared her.
Oh, no, you poor thing.
When I say I belong at Super Weenie Hut Juniors, like I belong at Super Weenie Hut Juniors, but I digress. Thank you so much for sharing, Sky, and we'll move
Absolutely.
on to Sharky.
I'm always here for Mega Weenie Monday. Patrick, today's Wednesday.
Mega Weenie Monday.
So, outside of gaming and D&D, and out of the probably easiest thing to talk about of the editing, which I do for this podcast as well as my own channel, my main other passion is writing, and I will not say what name I've written stuff under, but I do have several fan fictions out in the world from my time in high school.
Bitch, you gotta DM me that shit.
Nope.
Immediately.
Nope. I will not.
On God, I will not share it with anybody.
Because I've gone through and I've changed the name on the account. I've removed any identifying features on like the author notes on each chapter. They are in the void. They are written by me, but nobody will ever know. So...
Can I ask what fandom?
Ooh.
You're already putting yourself out there.
You don't have to. No. He doesn't have to if he doesn't want to.
It was like late middle school, like freshman high school. There were Naruto stories.
Dude, I wrote Naruto fanfic in middle and high school too, dude. I was right there with you.
And I was on that Hinata Naruto hype train before it even became finalized in canon.
King shit.
King shit.
Fuck it up, my liege.
Mine was self-insert with the guy with the dog.
Ooh.
Kiba.
Kiba.
Yeah. But Sharky.
But from there, I took a lot of years off of actually like writing and publishing stuff on any kind of platform to just kind of fill out notebooks. And actually, where are they?
Oh,
he is getting up and going to retrieve something from under his bed. For those of us who are listening on Spotify,
there are like 5 notebooks here that are just like filled with like writing ideas, and like they're like from cover to cover.
Sharky, you gotta do NaNoWriMo with me this year.
Ooh, that's always
you gotta do it.
I might, because recently I put out some chapters for an original story between that Kristen and I worked on together. But I kind of lost the plot a little ways through and I unpublished them to kind of like refine it a little bit and narrow it down, and probably gonna start working on that one again, because my love for writing also transitioned into role-playing a lot on sites, and this was back like it began back with like Yahoo chat rooms into like MySpace profiles, and it's still continuing on like RP sites today that have like the MySpace kind of layout. And so it's like that got a lot of characters developed and like really fleshed out with like friends and Kristen and all that. So we're taking those characters now and we're going to throw them into their own story progression. So that might pop up soon. I already have the Wattpad account, and yeah, Wattpad, whatever you want to call it. That was where
I guess for original stuff, Wattpad's better than like AO3 and stuff if it's original content.
And I think they also they don't have like a copy feature for stories, so it's harder for people to copy paste and like call it their stuff. So it's a built-in like stuff like that. But I have that account. I posted some like of the D&D drabbles that I've written to kind of like flesh out areas of the world. They're in their own like thing. And Alvin's camera just like completely froze on me for a second. That was weird.
Yeah, my internet took a nosedive, so
that's fair. But I had the story posted there. I removed it and kind of reworking it. But it's definitely like your typical like teen novel. What's up, Jack?
YA is good.
YA is good. Two things. One, shout out to V Bulletin for those forums that you were talking about. Second, I have a long form series in an MMORPG that nobody ever plays that I wrote fan fiction for.
What RPG?
That I was like 16.
Oh my god, is our point one for this episode going to be fan fiction?
No.
We thought it was gonna be Imposter Syndrome. It's gonna be fan fiction.
It's going to be fan
Honestly,
fiction.
probably because mine was different. Mine is sort of like based on it, but it wasn't. It's technically fan fiction because it's like using some of the same characters, but it wasn't like for romance or anything like that. I just wrote because I thought the characters were super cool.
Also, if you write fan fiction for your own D&D game, isn't that just writing your own canon?
It's just canon. Yeah.
This was
most of the time I'm looking at characters in our D&D campaign, and I'm just doing the no kiss.
Me every minute of every day.
And that's why I added the roleplay like channels in our D&D Discord, and they have been put to good use. So
Someone's gonna have to explain me that Discord channel at some point, because I'm just sitting there like,
yeah, it's a lot more understandable now than it was. I did like a whole like rework of it. So, but
yeah, you were saying that your work that you're doing right now is in like YA stuff. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's definitely YA. Maybe a little more mature than YA. It definitely deals with like heavier like themes, mostly as a way to explore my own limits as a writer, as well as like not be afraid to like write certain things. Like the original version of the story, which has been completely changed, so the plot's completely different now. The original story focused on the murder of a young student in this like it was actually I think we put it in Washington. It was like a small original town in like Washington, definitely like the small town kind of feel to it, and it would have gone into things. It would have been like it was the high school teacher that did it, and it would have explored things like the like that kind of like relationship and the stuff that goes on with that stuff and all that and some more. So it's just like it was like a murder. It's like a murder mystery thing going on. So it's all those plot holes, and then all the characters at the original story were in high school, so definitely dealt with like stuff going on there. But we decided to age them up to about mid-20s, the cast to about their mid-20s. And
yeah, you could look up new adult fiction. I don't know if it's still considered like an emergent genre or not, but it's sort of the bridge between your like Hunger Games, your like YA lit into your like Outlanders and your more like strict adult fiction, where the main characters are usually like in their 20s and dealing with like those first steps into adulthood.
All those kids who were like super into YA are just like, here's the other place I can come project.
Now I want them to fuck.
Though
new adult lit.
The thing that I think took me a while to or the thing that's I think people are going to be like when I first talked to them about it is they're weirded out is people who know me from like my role playing like profiles on sites and stuff like that. The main characters, Travis and Nadine, they're siblings, and that's what the connection was when me and Kristen first started writing together, and then me and Kristen started dating, but we still wrote them as siblings. So it's like, but the thing was, the new story is same thing. A girl from the town's murdered, and the only piece of evidence is a ring that Travis had. So the story is about Nadine trying to figure out, like, did he do it or is he being set up by somebody?
Was it still have that tinge of like these people all went to high school together? Like one of those
all
type
situations? The people in the main cast of characters, like they're mid-20s or so. Yeah, they all have like this connection through their high school time, but it's definitely been about 8 years since then. So it's like everybody progressing on with their life in ways. But it's like since me and Kristen write it, like we like keeping like spicier elements into it and stuff like that. So like Nadine's dating Travis's like best friend, but they haven't told him yet and stuff like that. So it's and then
Ooh.
it's definitely a story that
Spicy.
focuses on like secrets, like kids paying for like parents like mistakes and stuff like that. And it's definitely, we've moved it to like a small like southern town, so it's definitely more of like a southern gothic style story, or at least that's what the aim's going to be. So
Gotta do Nano, my guy. It'll get you 50,000 words in a month. We'll do it together.
Suffer together.
Yeah, I was writing like 2,000, 2,500 like a week on this one originally. Like each chapter was about 2,500 words. So, but that was also when I had time. That was also when I had time, like in school. I was in classes at the time, so I had like study halls to work on during it. But now it's like I'm at work, 6 to 3 every day, and then I come home. So it's like just trying to find time to actually like do it. The plan now, rather than keep myself on schedule, is just write it until it's done and then start publishing it. Because I was doing it like week by week, and it was just kind of like one of those things that I had to keep up with. And when I hit like that writer's block, it was like, Jesus Christ, I can't get this done by Friday. So,
for sure.
But
Well,
it's
I'm
definitely
excited to read it someday.
Yeah, it's definitely a collaborative effort between me and Kristen. Like getting like the main premise and like what we know to be like the reveal and everything was like a mutual effort. So fun. Like I'm the one writing it, but she's definitely like giving her input, since a lot of the characters in it are ones that she's made during like our role plays and stuff like that. So
Fun couples activity for sure.
yeah, that's just one of those things that we do. But
does anyone have any questions for Sharky?
I do.
Sure.
Like, for you personally, like, what was like something like what are some more specific like books that you kind of like draw, like that you might draw inspiration from, like in your own personal writing? Because I know I found like when I was writing fan fiction and stuff like that, like I would also always like be based off of like different authors or like different styles of writing and stuff like that. So for you personally, like what are some that like you draw inspiration from?
It's
Great
weird
question.
because the books that I read aren't even in the same genre as the book that I'm trying to write.
Fair enough.
I've recently been reading through a fantasy series called The Black Company, and it's about a group of mercenaries who get hired by the sorceress. But it's not your typical like high fantasy. It's definitely like a low fantasy where only really powerful individuals have like access to magic and stuff like that. And it's just their story realizing like, oh shit, this employer of ours is not, a good person. And it's like the ins and outs of their relationships as like a unit that's been traveling together for years and stuff. And it's definitely more of like a character driven, like all the characters have their own like unique personality, their own wants and needs. It's not a focus on the resistance and the rebellion that's happening. It's definitely like what the group's doing within itself. And I
So
think
you're more. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And aside from that, there's also like some science fiction stuff. Like I love the works of Lovecraft, but the author is definitely problematic to say the least.
Yeah.
Say the least.
Oof.
And I'm also like Stephen King stuff. I haven't read a lot of it, but the stuff that I have read has definitely been interesting. But the thing is, like, the stories that I like to write, whether it be like in roleplay or actually like write it, are definitely stuff that fall more in line to your young adult like stories. Like I think the new one, it's like not even stuff that's like the books that I've read or have seen, but stuff based on books. Like a lot of this new version of story is based on a lot of stuff from Pretty Little Liars, which I keep talking about that. Chris and I have been going through. Like it's rubbed off like a few plot points in that have like rubbed off on me into this like new plot line. And then you have like all the trashy stuff, Riverdale, like that's going to pull stuff, whether it be from the show or the comics. Just
I have a question, but I'm waiting for you to finish your point.
that's why I'm just kind of rambling at this point.
Okay. I have to make this obvious inside joke between you and me and possibly Alvin. Where do you come up with your names?
It's like our names. It's like
Your names for in your book,
Oh,
in your writing style.
I can't remember. What did I can't remember what gave me the name Travis Burke as the main character's name. I think it was just one that I like thought of. Like I think that I wanted the name Travis as like a character name. And I just kind of like went through last names until I found one that I think, worked.
What is Caucasian enough to work? Here
And,
it is, Burke.
So it's that, and then a lot of them are just kind of either the same name, like just directly taken from like an RP to the story. And those names are just kind of like what can sound like the like Queen Bee kind of name for the high school. And that's how we came up with like Deborah Sinclair as like
That's a Queen Bee name.
Like the main like girl of the school. And just names that I think like sound like interesting but not like too crazy. Like Jesse Rhodes, that's Travis's like best friend. So it's just like it's either stuff that I like go through a list and I think might be good, or stuff that I just like, what name do I just like? Like I like the name Jesse. So there's that. And just kind of like that process.
This dunking on sponsored by the times that we've asked Sharky for a name in D&D.
Yeah, well, see, coming up with them on the spot, like
yeah, that's very different. No, I understand. I just had to get it in there.
What was in the chat last night? It was like something that Charlie shared, and I responded with the Twitter post. It's like you see a dark cloaked man sitting in the corner. It's like, who else is in the tavern? There's a goblin named Sam Smarkle. I want to talk to Sam Smarkle.
Sam Smarkle.
So this happened one time in a game that we were doing. It was this very interesting like little lizard character who like we were like, oh shit, this lizard talks. What's this lizard's name?
And then you just hear like key striking as I'm pulling up like a name generator.
I love this, but we're not talking about gaming today.
We're talking about literary names.
Does anyone else have anything for Sharky?
That was it.
Cool. Thank you for sharing, Sharky. I'm excited to see more of your writing stuff, and I will bully you into doing Nano with me.
Yeah, well, see, now since I've talked about it, I have to work on it, don't I?
Yeah, 100%.
So, I can build off of what Sharky was talking about rather nicely. I'm a book person. I've been a book person since I was very small because I had undiagnosed ADHD all throughout my childhood. And one of the ways that was like deemed parentally like an acceptable activity that would keep me like stationary and quiet and not destroying my parents' home for large swaths of time was reading. I liked it because it took me like somewhere else and I got to be this different person and learn all this new stuff. And it was much more fun than like math or social studies or any of that stuff, which is hilarious because I now have a Master of Science and a Humanities degree. But I was like, I just want to read books all the time. So yes, I'm a book reader. My preferred genres tend to be towards the more romance, which anyone who listens to this podcast is like, Haley into romances? You never would have guessed it.
I like a spicy romance also.
Just watch the anime episode.
I didn't know that like spicy romance was a thing until I read Outlander in like 2015. Because it was just like it was on the shelf and someone's like, oh, you should check out Outlander, and the cover was pretty and I was like, sure, I'll read Outlander. And then it got spicy and I was like, it can do that without being like a Harlequin, like trashy romance novel that has like Fabio on the cover and it's like the maintenance man that railed me or something stupid.
At least it's not Chuck Tingle titles, because those are a gift
Do
from
not
God.
slander Chuck Tingle in front of me. I love the concept of Chuck Tingle.
Keep going. It's like keep talking. I'm gonna bring up some of the
Okay,
titles
so
for
for those of you who are listening to this podcast and are unfamiliar with Chuck Tingle, I'm not sure if Chuck Tingle is like a real person or if it's like a collaborative effort to call out the Hugo Awards.
Apparently, according to the Wikipedia page, he's a pseudonymous author, primarily of gay niche erotic short stories.
Fucked in the butt by my own
yes.
concept of sentience.
His pen name is Dr. Chuck Tingle.
It's fantastic.
Okay, apparently
they have something with the Velociraptor.
Okay, apparently they have little has been confirmed about his identity beyond the fact that it is a pseudonym. So
yeah,
nobody knows, because I think he publishes all his stuff on like Amazon, I think, or like other sources. So nobody knows who this guy really is.
No, and I think it all started because of the like weird standards for like what quantifies you for like consideration for the Hugo Awards, which like I'm not even 100% on what the Hugo Awards are. I just came across Chuck Tingle stuff because I watch Game Grumps. But we're not talking about games today. But while Sharky's looking up some Chuck Tingle covers, I'll talk about which I've talked about on our podcast many times, but A Court of Thorns and Roses is the current series that I'm reading. I'm on the third book. I have this book because I'm going to be filming a book review of this for my YouTube channel in the next day or so. But I just like more character-driven books that aren't necessarily about like, it can have pretty shoddy world building and I'm still going to have a good time reading it, where I'm really interested in sort of like the interpersonal connections between people. Sharky's losing his mind over there. So
because I guess because the thing is also with Chuck Tingle, I think he powers out a book like a month.
Like because they're not I haven't
long.
read one, but now I want to.
They're like all like not novels, but they're not short stories. They're like that weird, like 70 or 80
novellas. They're little novellas.
Yeah. Like this one. See if I can do it here. But Geddon, the final days of pounding ass.
Like, please pull up one of the ones about the Velociraptors.
I'm trying.
Or when he's like with his own concept of sentience, or by his own Hugo Award, or the fact that he lost a Hugo Award.
I've got a list here. It's angry man pounded by the fear of his latent gayness over a dinosaur transitioning into a unicorn.
Yep.
Slammed in the butt by my Hugo Award nomination.
Slammed in the butt by my Hugo Award nomination.
And this one's super meta. It's pounded in the butt by my book, pounded in the butt by my book, pounded in the butt by my book, pounded in the butt by my own butt.
Yeah, see,
like,
this man is a meme, and
he's a meme.
It's just the best kind of meme because it's just so nonsensical. Like, I can only aspire to be that kind of author.
This is like there's shit posting and then there's Chuck Tingle posting.
Yes. Chuck Tingle, he transcends.
Yeah. And my favorite is his I guess his technically is what they're going by. Is like the super meta, like current news story stuff. Like Donald Trump's ass is haunted by the handsome ghost of his incriminating tax returns. And billionaire Elon's mug takes the handsome planet Mars in his butt.
The thing is, like,
and everybody,
it's just so weird because you're looking at the Wikipedia page and it's just erotica satire. So it's like, it's just like the tags being erotica and satire are really what makes like that Wikipedia page hilarious to look at, because you're like, these things shouldn't go together. but
they do.
And yet
whoever this person is has perfected shitposting monetization. Like
100%.
So what we're saying is our point one is either going to be talking about the marvelous misadventures in fan fiction, or we're just going to laugh about Chuck Tingle titles for an hour.
This will be the first .2 episode where we talk about
So-
Ew.
Originally, I wanted to, before we did this podcast, I wanted to do like a Friday like game show episode. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. My screen keeps getting brighter and stuff. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. I wanted to do like a Jeopardy style game, but with nonsense. And I had gone and found a Twitter page that's just lines from fan fiction. And I wanted to make a game, fake or fan fiction, with just like a sentence from it. And
Yes.
My name is Ebony Raven Dementia Darkness or Raven Way.
There was one, it was I forget what it even was. And I posted it. I was like, can you guys tell me if this is fake or fan fiction? And I think it might have been Charlie who was like, I have no idea what the fuck this could be from. Like,
but anywho, Haley likes to read. Let's roll it back in.
Roll it back in.
But it's been nice. Like, this book, I wouldn't say by any stretch of the imagination, it's like great literature. Have I had fun reading it? Yes. Is it as spicy as they say when they use words like sexy, seductive, daring? No. If you've read fan fiction, this is like Taco Bell mild sauce. Like, it's nothing.
I only eat that Diablo.
I need that Diablo sauce. It's kind of helped me go back into loving reading again, because I feel being in grad school, the only reading that I got to do was like purely academic stuff, which is like the absolute soul-crushing worst stuff to read, because like, yes, I'm interested in it. Like, I've written academic stuff now, and like, I don't even like reading my own writing in that. And I had started reading American Gods when I finished school and just like couldn't do it, because like I'd seen the first season of the show, so like I'm reading like I know what's gonna happen, so like I didn't get into it. I bought this book because TikTok, like Book Talk, bullied me into buying it, and I have another book that's like a sexy retelling of the Hades and Persephone story, which like I will read any retelling of the Hades and Persephone story because it is problematic, but
It's like,
some tellings of it are really good, and I love it.
It's like, aside from that, it's like Hades gets a bad rap. He's also the only one not cheating on his wife. So
yeah, and like, without me going on a deep dive about how Hades has been done dirty by the modern day public, which is framing the Hades and Persephone story through a like Christian Eurocentric lens, that's another podcast.
Are you telling me the only true version of Hades is not Disney's Hercules? Like,
that is a really great Hades, but it's not the only one.
The class has questions.
Deca, go.
Lore Olympus.
She hit her chest hard enough. I could hear it through the microphone. Like,
obviously, I read Lore Olympus.
Just
like,
making sure.
It's rough. Some chapters, I'm reading the like some of it where it's like, you might not want to read this because we get into some dark stuff, and I'm like, I'll see you next week. I'll read the little recap and I'll connect the dots. But yes, that one. But did you have something to say, Sky?
Only kind of, but it's because it's gaming related. So, but like Hades the game,
I haven't played it. You saw how much I struggled trying to do Phasma with you.
That's true.
And that's not just me. Anytime I died in that game, would just like sit and like try not to cry to myself. But this like Court of Thorns and Roses kind of got me out of my like phobia of reading, where I was just like, reading is just like a negative thing. I read this book. It is like 200, 300 some pages. Oh, 400. Wow. Okay, that's a lot more pages. It's like 420 pages. LOL.
Nice.
I read it in 6 hours. I sat down and like at first was like, I'm gonna have a whole like, I'm not gonna get too deep in my thoughts because you can watch the YouTube video when it comes out. But it definitely got me back into reading. I went and got this next book the next day, went back 2 days later to get the next book. I'm still working on it. But yeah, books have always just been sort of like an escape, borderline like dissociative tool.
So back to the like back to that thing about it's like this will like is the content that the book will have. When I'm reading a book and it's like this book will like have a warning for it, I'm just like, give it to me. Like it's just
But my favorite thing about this book, which I cover in my YouTube video, it takes place in fantasy Britain, like the fantasy British Isles. Because look at this map. Like here's the main Britain island, and there's fantasy Northern Ireland over here.
That is the
and
best.
Then here's fantasy Europe.
That's the best thing about fantasy novels is when they put a map in, and you're like, "This is the world," and it's like, "Thank God I can visualize it."
But here's what's funny. Spoilers for A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. The only places you go in this first book are right here, this teeny tiny dot that says Feyre's Village, and this place right here. You go right here. And like
they're like, we'll fill in the rest later.
Yeah.
As I go along.
But like Sarah, I love your book, love your work. Plan on reading your YA series after I finish this one. Girl, you did not even try with this map. This is literally a map of Great Britain and Europe. You gotta try an eatsy weetsy bit harder. But books have always been my thing. I can talk about books for days. Most of my YouTube content is about books. I'm doing a chapter by chapter analysis of my very favorite book, 1984 by George Orwell, because it's just fun to think about that book, even though it's too real these days.
I think I put that as one of the first like end credit like links for our first episode because I didn't have anything else to link on the channel yet.
Yeah, it has a lot of views for me having like less than 500 subscribers.
I think that's why. I think it had like the views. I was
it has
like,
almost 15,000 views right now, and like I started doing that like 6 years ago when I was just like horrendously depressed and like didn't know what I was gonna do with myself. So I was like, let me just read my favorite book and talk to people about it in a way that's going to make sense if like a high school student's taking like senior English or like junior English when they're reading this book. And it's just fun. I gotta like restart that book to do the rest of it, so it's probably gonna be a long ways off before I finish doing that, but I like books and stuff, so
that's wholesome.
So guys, was it that painful? I mean, you didn't even really stick to the no games unspoken rule.
We have painful. The attention span of pigeons. So
that feels disparaging to pigeons.
Hey.
You throw a breadcrumb in front of a pigeon, see what happens.
I do love pigeons, my little weird rat friends.
Sky rats.
But yeah, I guess go ahead, Deca, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I don't think it was like painful. It's just where we draw the majority of our experiences from as gamers. And even in the context of like me taking pictures, who am I taking pictures of? Video game characters, or anime characters. Yeah. So
with D&D, I think like one of the things is just like good DMs create, great DMs plagiarize. So it's like if you're running a campaign, you're just gonna rip everything you love from movies, from books, from comic books, and just like make it this mess of a setting.
From other DMs, I say, as I've stolen from SharkyHat.
My one shot that I've run twice literally takes place in like Meriton from Pride and Prejudice.
Oh wow.
So
because I'm stupid.
So this one shot you're gonna run a third time again, right? For us bonobos?
Yeah, I can run it for you guys. It hopefully, if I've run it twice now, you'll probably get stuck on the same part that everybody's gotten stuck on, which he was 5 years old at the time. My 5-year-old nephew solved in about 15 seconds.
To be fair, kids are smarter than us. Like, 100%. We've been jaded by life. Like, we don't think critically anymore. We've lost that creativity. So, I forgot about this thing. I got to have this notebook with notes written on the side of it, and I was like, the hell was this for? And I opened it up, and I was like, oh, right. We're supposed to run a Magical Girl campaign eventually.
Do you want to see my current note-taking notebook?
Yes.
Tusk Love.
Nice.
I'm
Nice.
Matilda Mercer. Thank you, Charlie, for buying me this.
But,
It's great.
Where most people do like outlines for writing, like back to that for a second, I've realized that looking at all my stuff, I like detail a lot of shit out and then just forget about it.
A mood. A whole mood.
Like, I think, and even then, like, I start with the most complex elements of any story. Like, I'm looking at this Glitter Hearts campaign that I wanted to run, where it's like us playing through a magical girl campaign. And it's just like, I created the whole mythology before making the town. So
Sharky's
I'm
a very
like-
top-down dungeon master.
I'm sitting here, I'm like, why are there magical girls? And I was like, create the entities that granted these powers. And then why are there good and bad ones? And I do that for every story, which is why I never actually get anything done. Because when it comes time to fleshing out a character, my notes are empty. I just know what they do in the town. I have not statted out that character at all. So,
And on that note, I guess we'll turn it to you, the audience. What sort of things do you like to do that aren't related to gaming?
pardon me, not watching these videos. Like you can't say you can't say watching our videos are your favorite thing to do.
Oh,
You have to give us more. You got to give us more.
But yeah, let us know in the comments. I know I lurk in our comments on my own channel, so if you say something fun, I'll definitely be reading it and responding. You can find our flow code link in the description box below, along with all of our personal links to all of our own projects and fun things we've got going on in our lives. I know I had fun on Sky's Twitch stream the other day. We played Phasmophobia. Well, I should say he and his friend played Phasmophobia. I glitched into the wall, lagged into the wall, and died a lot. But it was still really fun. So make sure you check out all of our links. And thanks again for watching the Without Context podcast. And we look forward to talking to you guys again next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.